Hi everyone, welcome to this video where today we're going to be looking at data types. Now data types are, again, they're something fundamental to computer science with regards to how we program and store data. Now typical exam questions will involve the examiners asking you, do you know your data type? So they'll give you an algorithm. So for example, it might be an algorithm for calculating the area of a circle. And they might say, what data type do you use for the constant pi? And you need to know what booleans are. So essentially, this video covers the basics of getting to know data types and types of data, well, how data is classified. So our learning objectives are that we need to understand the concept of a data type and use the data types listed appropriately. So, first of all, we need to be considering the last unit, we learned about using algorithms to solve problems. So, for example, we have the merge sort here. Now, what did we use to hold data? And was the data that we used manipulated or used in calculation? Well, the data that we used for a merge sort algorithm would have included separate lists that we merged together. For a binary search algorithm, we would have used data to store a lower boundary, a upper boundary pointer, and a midpoint. So, jumping into it, we have the example of a binary search algorithm from the last unit. So in the binary search algorithm, we divide and conquer the data. So we split it in half repeatedly until we found what we're looking for. But how does the computer know what we're looking for? So how is data, such as the pointers, the midpoint, what we're looking for, how is it stored? Well, we need to also think that, are we going to store data for a name in the same way that we store data for a quantity? So here we have two variables. We have variable name and variable age. For a name, we're going to store something like Bob. For age, we're going to store something completely different. So for example, Bob's age might be 41. So these two types of data are completely different. So how could we classify type of data in relation to its purpose? Well, this is where data types come in. So first of all, in programs we can store values in variables. Now a variable is a memory address that stores a user-determined value. So that's something you might want to note down for your exam if you are asked that question. So from Unit 1 you would have used them in your programs like this. So output, please enter your name, name is user input. So just to do a little bit of surgery here, this is an output, quite clearly. This here is your variable identifier. Now the identifier is the name that we call and use the variable by. So if we're going to use name in the program, that's how we're going to refer to it. The arrow is assignment. So assignment with variables refers to giving it a value. So in this case, our assignment, we are giving it a user input. So this is whatever the user puts in. Now casting is the technical term for giving a data type to a value. Data type refers to the classification of a type of data, which is self-explanatory. But the ones that you need to know about, we've got examples in Java as well. You need to know about characters, booleans, strings, integers, and reals. Now something that you'll need to know is that a real is also called a float. That's how we refer to it in Python at least. So here I've got a Java program. Now Java is they're quite specific on how you declare your variables, what with it being an object-oriented language. So as you can see, just before the variable identifier, we've declared the type. So integer, boolean, character, string. We've said what it is. In Java, obviously, there are different rules. So, for example, characters have to use the single quotes, strings will use the double quotes. So, let's look at the data types and what they exactly are. So, a string is a sequence of alphanumeric characters and symbols. The keywords, I'm going to get the highlighter up because the keywords is we need sequence of characters and symbols. You need to know that they're embedded in quotation marks. So, for example, not the laser pointer, for example, we would have the name Bob. Integers are whole numbers often used for counting. So, where we talk about a whole number, and obviously for counting, you don't necessarily need to have counting, but you need to know that integers are whole number values. So, whole numbers include, obviously, let's say 2, 4, 9, 136, but with regards to a whole number, this includes negatives as well, so negative 1, negative 444, these are all integers. So far we've looked at text and numbers. Booleans, on the other hand, are states. They have one of two values: on, off, true, false, positive, negative. Now, Booleans as a data type are often used as flags. So, for example, in our binary search algorithm, we used a Boolean to determine whether the value we were looking for had been found or not. So, if found was true, we would do this, otherwise we would do this. Now, the next data type we look at is character. Now, as we saw on the previous slide, they were embedded in single quotes, but a character is alphabetic characters or symbols, and you need to know singular. They are singular. One character. So, for example, it might be A. On the other hand, it could be a numeric value, so it could be 2 as long as it has the quotes. And as we've said, the general consensus is that we use single quotes. Now, the last one you need to know about is a real. So, essentially it's self-explanatory because a real number has a decimal or fractional part to it. And with regards to the purpose of a real, they're used for measurement. So, for example, where we're measuring length of something, we would get a tape measure or a ruler, and we would say this is however many centimetres. So it could be 5.21 centimetres. So you need to know that reals are used for measurement and will have a decimal or fractional part to it. So this could be 3/2. That's a real. This also translates as being 1.5. This also applies to irrational numbers such as the square root of 2 and pi. So, with this slide, you should be able to determine what a data type is and examples of them. So, how are data types categorized with regards to type and format, etc.? So, we can categorize our data types in 3 ways. They can either be logical, numerical, or alphanumeric and symbolic. So, this is like a sort of hierarchy chart of how they are. So, logical, we're going to refer to Booleans because they're going to have binary states. It's going to be 0, 1, true, false, essential, like that. We have numeric types, so we have reals, so these are measuring. And notice that I'm using these keywords because you might be asked what are they exactly used for. So, reals, they're measurement. Integers, counting. So, for example, we might say that we have, with age, you're counting the years, with iterations, so for I in range X, I is counting the number of iterations. Alphanumeric and symbolic, we have strings, so that can be long. Strings such as hello world, but I'm just going to write hello. And with characters, the consensus, singular quotes, and it could be anything, so let's say A. So that's essentially what you need to know about data types. And like I said, exam questions are going to be very much, what data type is this, or what data type would you give this variable, why would you give it that? And this PowerPoint essentially covers all of that need to know stuff. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video.